And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Drury and Friends College Football Show. I'm Ben Drury, the host of this show, and what we like to do is talk just about that, college football. Drury and Friends is the title of the show. However, today it will just be me, Ben Drury. We don't have that long of an episode today. We're going to try and get as many episodes out over this Christmas break, holiday break, before school starts back up later or at the beginning of 2026. Now, considering that, on today's episode, I'm going to get into the Gator Bowl, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, a matchup between the Missouri Tigers and the Virginia Cavaliers. Myself, as a Missouri Tigers fan, I'm very excited for this game. I'm going to break down what this game means for the Tigers, what it means for Tony Elliott's Cavaliers, and without further ado, after that, we're going to get into a little bit. As always, the Drury and Friends is powered by the numbers ranking system, BTN. We're going to get into the Week 17 by the numbers top 25. We're going to break that down. If you are unaware of what that is, I'll talk a little bit about why I started that, how it works, and stuff like that. So enough talking. I'm going to continue talking, but enough talking with the intro, getting into the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Now, according to ESPN, this game is going to be close, but not too close. The spread sits at -7 for Missouri with an over-under set at 50.5. Now, from my perspective, that looks like, Mizzou is going to win somewhat handily in this matchup. The 19th ranked Cavaliers are going to come and not really do too much. However, I don't think it's necessarily going to be that way. Now, as I oftentimes do, using the BTN, I can get spreads and probabilities and stuff like that and kind of use those to base off, how I feel about the game. And with this one, I do not agree with ESPN whatsoever, and neither does the BTN. It favors Virginia by just around a touchdown, as I'm pulling it up now. Virginia is favored by 6.5 points, according to the BTN. So with a 14-point flip from what ESPN thinks to what the BTN thinks. Now, some things to consider. If you're a Missouri fan and don't know too much about Virginia, Virginia is the team that knocked off Florida State. Now, that's not that big of a win as we look about it retros. Now considering how Florida State ended their season. However, at that time, Florida State was red hot coming off of their win to Alabama. At that point in the season, I believe they were a top 15 team in the AP poll, and Virginia came and won a game against Florida State, knocking them off. And the thing with upsets is that sometimes an upset is a one and done, and that team upsets that team, and then, they just go back to being mediocre, and it's just even more embarrassing for that team who got upset. However, that's not the case for Virginia. They beat Florida State and continued on and have played well the duration of the season. They played an extra game. They've played one more game than Mizzou. They've played in the postseason already, playing in the ACC championship game, which is its own matter, its own discussion for another day, considering how conference championships work. However, Virginia is no one to bat an eye at. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, someone whom not enough people are talking about. That is, as I'm pulling up their roster right now, very, very fundamentally sound. To the point, Nick Saban had to have a segment over him. Chandler Morris is his name, number 4. He has 16 touchdowns on the year. He's from Highland Park, Texas. He's a senior, so he's very, very experienced at the position and just in college football in general. He isn't statistics-wise, he isn't top ranked in the quarterback position. However, if I'm Mizzou, he is a highly, highly poised quarterback in the pocket. He's able to move around well, very, very good at interpreting the coverage that is coming, what is shown in front of him, and he's very good at breaking that down and, giving it to teams on defense. So, if I'm Mizzou, if I'm Zion Young, if I'm that defensive front, the death row defense as they call themselves, I would be not scared, but I would be ready and prepared for the challenge. Because Chandler Morris, he may not be the most highly explosive quarterback, but when he is good, he's good, right? He's not all the time. He's not making these incredible throws like, Fernando Mendoza. He's not a Heisman candidate by any measure. However, he's fundamentally sound, and with the weapons around him, he can truly, truly expose those weaknesses in the Missouri defense if they come up. Now, on the flip side of the ball, Mizzou on offense, I have some very, very, very big opinions on this, and I actually need to get a drink of water. Now, Mizzou, they lose their offensive coordinator, Kirby Moore. And, flooding the Twitter after this, not firing, but after Kirby Moore's departure, looking at Twitter, everyone on the Missouri front is excited, right? As a Mizzou fan, like I said, and I, say it, this isn't me in my coverage. This is not me being biased towards Mizzou anyway whatsoever. And actually, I would pick Virginia to at least cover the 7-point spread. However, getting back on topic, Kirby Moore leaving, people think is a win. And frankly, I'm one of those people. Yes, Eli Drinkwitz bringing Kirby Moore in has brought amazing things to the Missouri Tigers. They've been able to do things that they haven't been able to do in recent history. How much of that is because of Kirby Moore? That's the discussion that needs to be had. Now this year, we have this very interesting, case. Because we bring in Bo Pribula, who is unfortunately no longer on the Missouri Tigers. He transferred, and who knows where he'll go. We bring him in. And in the first 5 games of the season, yes, they're against cupcake opponents, but still, in the first 5 games of the season, Mizzou looked like a complete team that was going to be able to and was going to be ready to take on a hard SEC schedule. However, Bo Pribula gets injured, and yes, in that Alabama game, we lose by 3 points, but Bo Pribula gets injured, and the offense is never the same. But I don't think that is just because Mizzou loses their quarterback. The offensive scheme was not a system that was able to allow the team to thrive. Now, this is what the Mizzou offense needs to look like. Now, they have Ahmad Hardy, and I've talked at lengths about how good Ahmad Hardy is and how important he is to Mizzou's success. Mizzou needs to utilize that, not in a way where, Ahmad Hardy, we're just going to give him the ball every single time, which, that could work, but not whenever you're facing off against good SEC defenses, especially down the stretch when Oklahoma, shut down Ahmad Hardy pretty much. So, Mizzou needs to have a pass game to lean back on. We have Matt Zollers, freshman quarterback, true freshman quarterback, one of the top recruits in the quarterback position leading into the season out of high school. And whoever is stepping up, I don't know if it's Chip Lindsey, who Mizzou just hired, whoever is stepping up into that offensive coordinator role for this Gator Bowl, they need to make a scheme and need to put Zollers in a scheme where, if those throws aren't coming, if his pocket presence isn't where it needs to be, then boom, hand it off to Ahmad Hardy or Jamal Roberts and let them thrive. But there may be a case where they're not able to. And there may be a case where Virginia's rush defense stands up, steps up big time, and shuts those two backs down. So what is Mizzou going to do? They need to be able to throw the ball. And one thing about Mizzou, they have some of the best wide receivers that no one knows about, or that not enough people know about. We've got Kevin Coleman coming from Mississippi State, Donovan Alubade, that's how you pronounce his name, he's a freshman as well. And yes, we have Marquise Johnson and Joshua Manning leaving, but we need to be able to utilize those deep, down the field weapons to the best of our ability. And that is how Mizzou will have success. It's, having 5 plays in a row where you're getting first downs and picking them up on the run game, and then out of nowhere you run a play action pass, and then boom, Donovan Alubade is down the field wide open for a touchdown. That would be how Mizzou succeeds in this game, and that is how Mizzou would be able to win and cover that 7-point spread given by ESPN. Now, the last thing I'll say on this point about this game is that earlier in the season, when Mizzou goes on the road, when Mizzou goes on the road against Vanderbilt, the host of College Game Day, big game. Everyone was in town. Nate Bargatze was the guest picker, I believe. But here's the thing. On that last drive, on that last possession for Mizzou, they were down by 7 points. Down by 7 points. The finishing score was 17-10. They shut down, Mizzou defense shuts down Diego Pavia for the most part, who a lot of people think should have won the Heisman. I disagree. But it's not the Diego Pavia hate show. But on that final drive for Mizzou, Donovan Alubade was nowhere to be found on the field. Now, who knows what could have been happening on that sideline? Maybe Eli Drinkwitz has a reason why he wasn't on the field. Kirby Moore, once again, was the offensive coordinator at that time. But Matt Zollers was the quarterback. Yes, it's his first game. Yes, he's nervous. Yes, it's a primetime game where, the pressure is on you. Mizzou playoff hopes at stake, possibly at that point in the season. But Donovan Alubade needs to be on the field during those situations. That's all I'll say. Kevin Coleman needs to be utilized. We need to be running plays that allow Matt Zollers to mess up. Eli Drinkwitz doesn't need to be coaching scared. Because he has a lot of times this season where it's the last game of the season, leave everything out there. There's not another game coming. So don't be worried about giving up an interception that comes from Matt Zollers truly getting into the game early on. Giving up an early interception, I would be all for it if it means allowing Matt Zollers to become more confident and more comfortable. As he realizes it's like everyone's welcome to the NFL, welcome to the NBA moment. Something really bad needs to happen to allow someone to wake up and truly assess the situation. So allow Matt Zollers to have the welcome to the NCAA football scene moment. Allow him to have that moment, whatever that may be. But do not be scared. Mizzou needs to not play scared. That is the key to success in this game. The defense has allowed them to stay in games all season long, truly. All season long, Mizzou has been able to stay in games because of their defense. It's time for the offense to pick up the slack. And that will happen if Mizzou doesn't play scared. Now, before we move on into our next segment, breaking down the By the Numbers Week 17 Top 25, a quick moment from our sponsor. Now, BTN Picks is the official college football pick'em game of the By the Numbers ranking system. You can see down there, that is this link to go play the game right now. You can pick winner, who's going to win the game. You can pick, who's going to cover the spread, and then you can pick whether or not the game will go over or under the total generated by the BTN. All spreads, all over-unders are generated by the Numbers ranking system. And feel free to create groups. I have a group with my friends, Drury and Friends. We have a group that we play with 30-plus people. And almost every week we're talking, have you made your picks yet? Because you have the opportunity to win bragging rights. Say, I know more ball than you do. Put your games on a parlay. Let those bonuses stack up. No money is involved, only points. So don't worry about that. But go play BTN Picks right now at the link down below, kickingforhome.squarespace.com/BTN-picks. Now, in our next segment, we're going to get into the most recent top 25 from the By the Numbers ranking system. Now, you can see that on the right of the screen. That's the field of 25. That's the top 25 at this point in the season. And before I get into breaking down the top 25, I want to give a quick precursor to this and kind of break down a little bit of what the By the Numbers ranking system is. Now, By the Numbers is, as it says up there, it's computer generated, it's objective, and it's unbiased. A lot of times people would call this kind of model a rating system, and I don't know if that would be the proper, name for the By the Numbers ranking system. So it's called the ranking system, By the Numbers ranking system. So it takes in a couple metrics into account. So it takes in strength of schedule in a different way than anyone has calculated it before. So it takes into account, all right, what is not the strength of schedule based on the name of the program, but the strength of schedule based on their performance up until that point in the season. So this allows for completely unbiased strength of schedule metrics. Some teams, if you look at someone's schedule, if they have more marquee, more blue blood opponents, they're going to be seen as having a more stronger strength of schedule. However, that isn't always the case. And that's what the BTN does. The second metric it uses, and this kind of compiles onto the strength of schedule, and strength of schedule uses this, is performance scores. Now, so the performance score takes in a few things. Now, it takes in the final scoring margin. So what is the final score? It bases it on, okay, what was the game environment? Was this a game on the road? Was it a game at home? Or was this a neutral field? And so using these things, it calculates, all right, how good has this team been all season?